How are we doing, DC Regional? Good morning.
Oh, this is.
Seeing someone go from darkness to light and just aspiring to be with you. It always is, I want to say, hi to, let's see, Boo, his family, and also Carlos. Always great hearing him. I think he's the, long lost blinded brother, so I enjoy hearing him. And also, I remember when I was here a few years ago, going to Dortmund's house, his family, and we were talking politics and trying to solve the world's problems. Obviously, we failed in that area, but it is great to see him. And of course, Daryl and Ron, lifelong friends, love them so much. In fact, I'm here at a family reunion. I was at a family reunion, and we came in town so great. We had a chance to go to the National Mall yesterday and see the dedication of the museum, which is really cool. Such a great time. Oh, you would have brought that, yes. But actually, it seems a little hot up here right now. I don't want to blow everybody out. Okay, so my Aunt Phyllis is my favorite aunt in the world. Anybody got a favorite aunt, you just love? Okay, and so we got a chance to spend time together with her and also my cousins. Just a great time, but it was a highlight to spend time with her. Have fond memories from when I was a little kid. She was always so full of life, so energetic, so giving, and got a chance to spend time with her, and that was a highlight among many other things. And I made a decision with her that only she and Daryl, the only two clubs and my wife, 3 people on earth, Daryl, because he's been such a great friend to me, such a great inspiration for many years. I've told him for all the things he's done for me, whenever we go out to dinner or lunch, any meal from now until eternity, then I have to pay. I buy. So to be that. And then I inaugurated yesterday Aunt Phyllis into that exclusive club. So now it's Trey, probably my kids, I'll put my kids in there, but Trey and then Aunt Phyllis and Daryl. That's how much it means to me, and so I feel like I'm home with you. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to our message today. All right, so when I got the clicker, that picture is a picture of the Turning Point Church, your family in LA. We're, I don't know if you can see it too well, but we're bridging the aisles. We did a series on called United States of America, Some Assembly Required, and we're just talking about navigating the current political climate. And then this was on 9/11, where we had a special tribute service. We prayed, and people were bridging the aisles, and it was a great moment and symbolizing what we need in this world, what we need in this country. So I wanted to show you that. This is my family, and I love them. So pride and joy here. My wife's married 33 years, right in the middle, and to your right is my daughter Tori and her husband Derek, and that's a mind blower. She just turned 25. They celebrated their 3rd anniversary earlier in June, and they are walking Disney movies. So I'm very happy. And any dads of daughters, when you find a guy that loves God first and that loves your daughter and treats her respectfully and honorably, it's really come through. And then to my left, to my right and your left is my youngest daughter, Kennedy, and she is a disciple. She's a junior at Cal State Long Beach in the ministry there. She actually is on the worship team, and so that's really cool. She got the singing gene in our family. I won't tell you who missed it, I did, but I'm glad she got it. And also, Derek and Tori. Derek is a part-time intern on our staff, and Tori's a marketing manager, and they lead one of our young marriage ministries. So I'm just grateful. So that's kind of who we are. And at the Turning Point Christian Church in LA, we are a very focused spiritual church. Okay, we don't mess around with trivial matters. We just want to know, how can we be the most spiritual people? So we have some slides of different surveys that we did over the past couple of months, just to show you how deeply spiritual we are. And in fact, what we were trying to do is get people ready for the upcoming election on November 8th. So we wanted to help them vote on different things, okay? So I'm going to show you some election results of the Turning Point Church so you can get an insight into how spiritual we are, okay? So this is the first one. We took this ballot, and 70% of our church are Apple people, and 30% are Android, okay? So that's the first thing we did. So to see how spiritual you are, we can't do it, we can't do a ballot, but how many iPhone people do we have? How many Android people with the open system? So under. Now, I'm in a divided household. And what Trey and I, we've just given up. I'm an under, she's an over. And so we don't even try to, a simple tip, don't ever try to change your spouse, okay? So we don't even try anyway. 33 years, I'll go in, I'll turn it under, she'll go in, turn it over, and we don't even talk about it. So that's just kind of, okay. So, how many over people do we have here? Okay? Under people. All right, okay, so we're in the minority. We're right, we're in the minority. That's the first time. Okay, how about this? We got, we're mostly vanilla, 58% vanilla, and I was surprised. 40% chocolate, and then of course we had to have a creative person that had a write-in ballot. They wrote in 3% wrote in squirrel, and 1% wrote in strawberry. I'm a vanilla guy, Trey is a chocolate woman, and so we're divided. All right, so how many vanilla? You got any vanilla? Okay, I think Charlie's gonna win. How many chocolate? Okay, it's pretty close, 50-50. Okay, we're getting along, all right. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How many squirrel people? Okay, and then don't let me discriminate, okay? No discrimination. How many strawberry? Okay. Very diverse group. Okay. Cool. All right. So this is the next one. We had Marvel Comics in DC. And I didn't even know who was on which one, but I had to get instructed. But Marvel, we've got the Hulk and Iron Man and Captain America, right? And in DC is Batman, Green Lantern. Okay, all right, cool. Okay, this guy, the kids in the row, like, what is this dude talking? Get him off, get out of here. Okay, so how many Marvel people? Okay, how many DC people? Well, I know we're all DC people, I get it. So we got one more. Now we did these two. These were flash ballots. We had Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's
and that one almost erupted in a fist fight. But actually, LOTR is Harry Potter. Okay, how many Harry Potter? Okay, how many Lord of the Rings? Okay, all right, LOTR wins. And then this final one, this is pretty, my household, once again, I'm in minority, but we had Star Wars versus Star Trek. And we know which one is the best, but just to test you, how many Star Trek? Okay. How many Star Wars? Okay, Star Wars wins it. All right, so now that you've got practice in voting, you'll be ready to go on November 8th. And you see how spiritual we are in turning point. Yes, we do occasionally baptize people, but yes, we see what we're about. So in all seriousness, I got a chance to talk to Daryl, and I asked him what he would want me to share and what we want to talk about. So I just want to deal with the concept of people giving their best, sort of your personal best, my personal best. And as we talk about this, the idea of your personal best, the primary context that's brought up in is when you talk about having, an athlete, and they maybe have, you saw the Olympians, and wasn't it cool to see the Olympian, the team made up of refugees a couple months ago, and just the great spirit and the great unity and people pushing beyond what was normal and giving their personal best. And in life, there are people that have the habit of giving their best. And then there are people that have the habit of giving less than their best. And I would imagine, we all have our reasons, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I would imagine we're a bit of a cross-section. I did some research, and it was interesting to find out that I read this particular article, and it said that 30% of people, only this specific demographic, 30% of people, 3 out of 10, had a habit of giving their best. Whether it be at work, whether it be in their relationship with their husband or wife, with their children, with their roommates, with their teammates, with their schoolmates. Only 3 in 10 had the habit of giving their best, and others had the habit of doing less than that. And so the question comes, why do good people stop giving their best? And I would say that if you're here worshiping and you are trying to do something for God, then you would fall in the good person. I'm going to go on and deem you all good people, okay? Now we know, I know Mark 10 is there, and no one is good except God alone. I get that. Compared to God, I get that none of us are good. But I consider you to be good compared to the rest of society. I can trust you. You already voted, so I vetted you, and I'm saying you're good people, generally speaking. But I think even good people can stop giving their best. The scary part about that is sometimes we don't even decide not to give our best. But something happens to us, and we stop believing or trusting or hoping, and we become mediocre in our efforts without even knowing it. How do you think so many relationships end up in disrepair? It's not like someone decides, okay, today I'm going to stop giving my best and loving this person. But it sort of incrementally sort of fades away through different things. And I want to tell you, just full disclosure, transparency, I want to give you 4 or 5 reasons in my life that there have been times when I have stopped giving my best, and there are times when I have been tempted to not give my best. The first one is when there is an ungrieved loss. When you or I have a loss, it can be the loss of a loved one, it can be the loss of our health, it can be the loss of an opportunity, it can be the loss of a season in our lives, it can be a monetary loss, a loss of possessions, but whenever there's a loss, maybe it's the loss of a relationship, maybe there's a conflict, but whatever, when there's ungrieved loss, I can tend to sort of downshift in my life and feel like the pain is such that I can't give my best in that pain. Now what's interesting is that there are people who suffer loss, but somehow figure out how to still give their best even though they have lost. In other words, they decide, you know what, I'm not going to let what I have lost cost me what is left. In other words, I'm not going to neglect what is left because of what I've lost. And the difference is not losing, the difference is learning how to grieve. Now, how many of you, when you grew up, were taught how to grieve? Raise your hand if you were taught by your mom or dad or by your teacher or coach and so forth. Okay, we got one person, 2 people. So what does that mean? Who among us is not going to suffer loss? Raise your hand when your sports team that you love loses, you're sad for about a week, right? A month, right? It is an actual loss. It really is. I can make a comment about, I'm from Chicago, although the Cubs might win this year, who knows? And I'm sure the DC sports teams win all the time. I get that. Not really. All right, so anyway, I don't want you to be mad at me. But I believe that most of us are carrying some degree of loss that we have not learned how to grieve. And if you show me someone who's sort of half-hearted, who's sort of trying, going through the motions, who that the spiritual light is not in their eyes, and I'll show you someone, chances are there's an ungrieved loss. The second thing is when there's an unsuccessful effort. In other words, I have tried to reach out to someone to tell them about God and I was rejected. Or I tried to, get out of debt and, my car broke down and my transmission needed replaced in 2000 and I throw my hands up. Or I try to resolve some conflict with a friend or a family member and it goes awry. And when I have tried, has anyone ever tried their best and just failed, but it didn't work, right? We don't want to have confessions, we don't want us to get depressed, okay? But when we've just been disappointed, that's the other thing with me is unmet expectations. When I have thought, and I actually have this in, different people in my church, people that you invest in and you think they're going to grow at a certain level and maybe they don't. Or even when you disappoint yourself, when you fail yourself, how many of us rehearse? I like to rehearse the things that I've messed up in my life in the past, It's a bad, sort of masochistic habit, I know that. But there's something about me, I tend to want to beat myself up for things that I have done wrong in the past, even if I've repented. And sometimes that shadows me. And so I look at, unmet expectations, and I feel like, why am I going to try again? I read this great quote. I can't pronounce the last names of the authors. I think it's Zygmunt or something like that. But they wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. And one of the definitions they had for cynic in it said that a cynic, something to the effect of a cynic, is just an idealistic person or an idealistic artist who doesn't want to be disappointed again. I think that relates to me. When you are disappointed, anyone been disappointed by a friend that you believed in and sort of kind of let you up, you don't want to deal with that pain again. You don't want to face that kind of thing again. And I don't know if you noticed, but living for Jesus is countercultural. And sometimes you get opposition. In fact, our world is becoming more and more secular. And the temptation for those of us who have been around a long time, who have been disciples for a long time, or Christians for a long time, who maybe we've been disappointed, maybe there's a family member who is not as spiritually focused as we would want them to be. I know that I lost my mom a couple years ago, and love her. She, one of the highlights of my life, she became a Christian at 72 years old, after me having been a Christian over 30 years, right at 30 years. Miracle of miracles. And it was such a glorious moment, such an out-of-body experience seeing this woman actually decide after all this time that she wanted to embrace following Jesus. And so, great, glorious moment then, and that was in 2008. But she succumbed to Alzheimer's in 2012, and to watch that decline over the next couple of years was so painful. And I couldn't mentally, still to this day, I can't reconcile why. I don't know how to put that in the frame of sort of my theology. And that's just one of those where I have to give that to God. Now, fortunately, she's all good in paradise. She's looking down here saying, hey, don't worry about it. Let it go. I'm good. You just make sure you make it up here. That's kind of what she's thinking about. Yes, Mom, I want to do that. But I'm saying that is a loss, and it's still there. And those of us that have lost loved ones, I am sorry for your loss. And we know we don't get over it. We can get through it with God, but we can't get over it. So we are going to deal with these things. Fortunately, there are heroes and heroines in the scriptures that faced incredible loss, but they showed us that just because I've suffered a loss does not mean that I need to stop giving my best to God, because everything I have is from God, and if He never gave me anything else, I own the rest of my life. I want us to really think about it. This is really, I'm more asking us, this is a discussion. This is really not a sermon, it's a discussion. I want you to think about, right now, am I giving my personal best in my walk with Jesus, in my relationship with God, in my striving to be transformed into the image of Christ, in my walking with God? Me personally. Now, I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm not mad at you, and I'm not, I'm going to be prayerfully getting on a plane so you can do whatever, and this is not I'm not trying to accuse you, but I'm trying to talk to you to say, though you've suffered wounds and loss, you don't have to be half-hearted in your relationship with God. You may choose to be, but you don't have to be. And in fact, those who are half-hearted, we pay the price if we choose to make that decision. In the scriptures, you remember, and Carl was saying about it earlier, Moses. Talk about a hard gig following Jesus. I mean, now, let's be honest. If you had to deal with 1 million Israelites who were griping and complaining and as faithless as those people were, you would have taken some of them out, right? You would have needed to repent later, but I know for me, I never would have made it. I know I wouldn't have made it. And so he does this heroic work and leads the people out of bondage. But then they succumb to idolatry and they succumb to faithlessness. And so they wander around what would have taken a two and a half week walk to go from where they were in Egypt to the promised land to modern day Israel. It took them 40 years. Now imagine how mad you John on. Everybody else said, no, we can't do it. And because of their faithlessness, you have to wander in the desert for 40 years. I would have been so bitter. I would have wanted to, but I know me. I would have been like, God, just take me now. You know, that's how I would have been. But thank God for the scriptures, because in Deuteronomy 6, the repetition of the law with the new generation, the kids of those that were faithless, Moses is giving his swan song speech to them. And he reminds them, Deuteronomy 6 to Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And he says, I've seen disappointment. I've seen discouragement. I've seen people that have messed up, and I myself have messed up, and yet I still call you. God hasn't changed, and he's still worthy of your best. I want you to love God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And it's interesting, through the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament and then through the New Testament, that phrase is mentioned about 40 times. That whole concept of not just love the Lord, not just love him, but love him with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And it gives me faith to say they lived in imperfect conditions and they were disappointed, they suffered loss, they had unmet expectations. But they still, some of them even love God more through that. And that's the hope that I can have. I don't want to, as I get older, as we pass the torch to the next generation, fade in my love for God. And I don't have to, if I don't choose to, by the grace of God and by his strength. I was about 3,500 years ago. 4,000 years ago. Later on, about 1000 BC, our hero David writes this. People say, some scholars say that he wrote it as he was dealing with his son Solomon, trying to teach Solomon the law. And he says, I've sought your face, talking about God, with all my heart. Not that I just sought you, but with all my heart. And I'm asking us, am I today seeking the face of God with all my heart? I'm not talking about how the church is doing. I'm not talking about how my small group is doing, how my spouse is doing, how my kids are doing, how my roommates are doing. Because at the end of it, those things, affect us. But is it really fair to excuse my lack of loving my God because of what someone else has done or not done? And it's just convicting. You got someone that lived 3.5 millennia ago, 4 millennia ago, Moses and David. 3 millennia ago. It's not like problems are new. It's not like following God's thing. All of a sudden got hard. Man, it's hard. You need to read the Bible, It's always been that way. But fortunately, he said, when we trust in God, we soar on wings like eagles. Walk and not go where you run, not be faint. Goes on, and this is his son, Solomon. If I can get the clicker. And Solomon wrote this a little bit later, 900. He said, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And isn't that interesting? Man, trusting. Sometimes, isn't it easier to just do stuff, to obey, to just do actions versus trust in your heart? It's a completely different thing. And actions fueled by the trust or what honor God. But if I have obedient actions, just out of rote memory, but not with a trusting spirit, that doesn't honor God. What honors God? What does God look through the scriptures, and you can study and look at what was it about Abraham that made God fall in love with him and say, I'm going to bless you in your generations? What was it about the patriarchs? What was it about the prophets? What was it about the first century apostles? It was their trust in God. In fact, that was the determining factor of what was going to lead to their salvation. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Is that me? That's you. Thank you. All right. And all your your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And I think that's the challenge for many of us that are a bit older. Am I going to keep trusting? Am I going to keep believing? Am I going to, okay, this didn't work out, but I'm going to do this, and this is going to work out. Going on to the New Testament with Paul. Paul went through some stuff, right? Anybody here going say, I've been through some stuff? Say, I've been through some stuff, right? And you're going to go through some more, right? How about this? I have taken other people through some stuff. Yes. And so we've all experienced that. But I love this that Paul talks about. He's actually writing to some people who are indentured servants. He is writing to people who are not working their dream job and they're living in their dream situation. And he says, whatever you do professionally, socially, spiritually, work at it with all your heart. And he goes on as to working for the Lord and not for men, because you know you will receive an inheritance from the Lord. And so we see from the pages of the Hebrew Scriptures, 1000 BC, 1300 BC, down to, about 60 AD, and then us here in 2016. It's a choice for us to give God our whole heart. And I want to leave you with a couple questions just for you to ask yourself. When you face the choice, am I going to be a wholehearted, with all my heart, I'm giving God my personal best Christian? Or am I going to be sort of a dull, I don't really reach out and share as much, I don't really look for new things I can learn in the Bible. I don't really want to invest my heart in helping someone else grow into Christ as much. I'm just tired. I'm just going to kind of spectate, spiritually retire, even though I still show up. I just want you to think about these couple of questions as we close. The first question is, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? I believe in your heart of hearts, you want to be someone that loves God with all your heart. I think that's who you want to be. But I also think we got hurts, habits, and hang-ups and scars that bind, so we feel tension there. And we're tempted to sort of give in to spiritual lethargy, but we feel the calls. I don't want to fade out like that. I don't want to be that. I want to encourage you with a couple of examples from our church. This couple, these are the Robinsons. Nate Robinson is on the corner, and his family. They live in San Diego. He was in the ministry years ago. Was he in the ministry? He was in a church in New Jersey, I think it was, many years ago, and I'm not sure he's in the full-time ministry. We're all in ministry if we're not in the full-time ministry. We're all in the full-time ministry, whether we're have a vocational job or not. You know what I mean, right? Everybody, I can speak English sometimes. Okay, but anyway, this guy, this family, they have been, followers many years, 20 plus years. A lot of disappointments, a lot of moving around, a lot of different challenges. But they have a dream now to really give the sort of the second half, raise their kids, obviously, spiritually, have a teenager and two other children, teenagers in the Bible. And what's cool is they're in San Diego. They were so inspired about the kind of church we're trying to build in Turning Point. Hey, we don't have it all figured out. We have plenty of flaws. Just visit us, we do. And yet the type of thing we're trying to do, help people find their place in God's story. They decided we want to be members of Turning Point. We meet in Van Nuys, California. They live in San Diego, okay? And that's two hours, depending on how godly you are in terms of your speed limit. 2.5 hours. And I said, what are you doing? We love you. You can't commute this far. I said, we're willing to commute. And I'm like, no, don't do that. How can you be spiritual? You got to be local. Now, they have a local group that they are actually leading, about 30 people that love them and want to, follow them as they follow Jesus and part of San Diego Church. But they said, we want to be with you. And we said, no.
No, we want to be with you. No, we're not going to be responsible for when you burn out and have a bad attitude. We're telling you. But he said, no, it's worth it to me. And they commute, sometimes twice a week, 2 hours, voluntarily. Daughter studied the Bible. He said, how can we learn what you're doing so that we can be a satellite sort of extension of your church where we are in San Diego? That's our dream. And now the reason I bring that up, here's a person who, when a lot of people are fading away, is saying, hey, I want more. I want to go out more passionate, more with all my heart than when I started, not less. And I think that's a cool example. Now, yes, it's true, we have people that live 5 minutes away that have a hard time getting there on time. I get it too, so I get it. But I'm just trying to say, there are examples. If I decide that's the kind of person I want to be, God gave me the strength to be that way. This other woman, Kristen German, she's a saint in the right. She was baptized. By the way, I want to say thank you. We have a young Christian who was baptized last August named Elizabeth Menez, and she visited here several months ago. And somebody, I don't know who, but somebody helped reach out to her dad. We love you. Thank you for doing that. Great to have family, you know, West Coast, East Coast family. Anyway, she was working at a father-son camp that we have every year. This was in Ojai. This is a couple hours away. And she was so moved by the dads and sons of our church getting along. You know, thank goodness we didn't, no fatalities, we didn't lose any sons. You know, the moms were like, you know, keep their fingers crossed, dad with the kid for a couple days, you know. So anyway, there were about 150 dads and their sons, and it's just so cool, you know. And of course, there's struggles there, but these guys are just an annual, retreat, an annual conference where they just spend time with their sons. She was so moved by the love of Jesus that she saw there, that she said, I want to come visit your church. Now the problem is, she lives in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is a long way from Van Nuys. It's actually not quite as far as San Diego, but it's a good hour and 45 minutes, so forth and so on. She was baptized a couple of weeks ago, and she says, I have found the family of God. And it is more than worth it. I said, can we give you gas money? She said, it's more than worth it for me to be where I know God is. Because this is, you guys reflected the love of God. And that's one of those where you're like, can I clone you? Can we make like 400 or 500 more? And it doesn't happen every day, but I'm just saying, what an exceptional conviction. Now this is a young woman, she's a college student. But she's willing to give her best. She's not looking at, man, what is the least I can do? What's the church closest to me? What's the least amount of commitment I can give God? She's a with all your heart disciple. And she convinced me. And I hope can give us some hope. Here's the second question. What story do you want to tell? Have you noticed that time goes really fast? Yeah. My daughters are 25 and 20 now. That means I'm old. So I'm like, I can't believe, I think I look the same. No, I don't. But they're just bigger, taller, and cared about all the kids. You know, the boys, high school boys, every summer grow, you know, grow a foot in a year. And I'm starting to look at, pretty soon, I'm going to have something to pass on. I'm going to be the granddad. My daughter and son-in-law are talking about starting a family a couple of years. I'm like, give me some time. Let me sit down. Give me some time, you know. But at some point, you know, prayerfully they'll have kids, and so we'll have grandkids. And I think about what story do I want to tell them about my walk with God. In the moment, I may want to be mediocre and be half-hearted and not give everything I can. But I know when that time comes, I will want to be able to tell them that I was a, with all my heart, Christian. And there were disappointments, and there were losses, and there were unmet expectations, and there were unresolved conflicts, all these things. But through that, God showed me, like Moses, like David, like Paul, all these others, that I could seek his face with all my heart, that I could trust him with all my heart, and that whatever I did, I could do it with all my heart. And because of that, I've left a legacy to you, not of perfection. Flawed, battered, but every time I fell, I got up by the grace of God. Every time I was convicted of sin, I repented. And I didn't give up, and I didn't fade out. And my passion grew, even as my body failed. I believe that is the story that you want to tell also. But to tell that story, you're going to have to, and I'm going to have to determine that giving my personal best and following God with all my heart is up to me. It is a choice that I make, and it's no one else's fault. It's my responsibility. It's my walk with God. It's my story. It's who I want to be and who I believe God wants me to be. Jessica Baumgart is the girl that's been baptized. She's a teen. She was baptized in August. Her dad, this is Michael and Faye Baumgart. I'm not sure who the person is looking the other way. Maybe it's her sister. Anyway, Michael has had several heart surgeries, and one of those where his heart stopped for quite a while, where in some ways clinically he's already transitioned. You've heard of that before, right? I don't know anyone that's undergone more pain and more stress and more disappointment, where you just feel like where your body fails, your spirit is willing, but your body fails. And when I see him joyful, dedicated, sacrificial, persevering, appreciating every breath and every day, like I should, and like you should. Were he not a with all my heart Christian, were he, I'm mad at God because I don't have my help. I'm mad at God because this or that moment would never happen. I wonder how many moments of victory God has in store for us that hang in the balance of whether we're with all my heart Christian or not. Another one that I love, this is, I love this person. Betty Love, that's her maiden name. I don't actually know her married name. Dear friend, many-year disciple, over 20-year disciple, became a Christian in LA. Got married as a disciple. Did really well. All super evangelist, one of the most evangelistic people I've ever met, most fruitful people I've ever met. Had some problems with her husband, who was a Christian. They both, had trouble, and they were divorced, which is never supposed to end. In fact, I don't know of a situation where you had two people who have been faithful to God and faithful to their discipleship, who've been married, that have gotten divorced. But when you throw out, with all my heart I'm following God, that's what opens the door, right? And I want to speak to you, many of you, who did everything right, and somebody else made a choice that you couldn't control, that broke your heart. And I know there are more like that. There was a disappointment, there was a heartbreak. God wasn't supposed to let that happen. That person wasn't supposed to let that happen. But I appreciate the fact that that wasn't the end of her story. And she struggled and she wrestled as a mature, older, I don't know exactly what age, and I don't want to say because I don't want to call later, but a more mature single woman who had her heart broken and could have gotten bitter, could have quit on God, could have said it's not worth it. Still struggled, just walked around in intense pain, but still shared her faith. Still invited people to church, still gave to the disciples. For many years, sort of wandered in the spiritual desert, moved to London. And as God often does, you never know when, but timing of a wholehearted disciple, and she meets this dude who is the love of her life, and they got married last year. And it's what it represents. God gave her beauty for ashes. And there are many like her. I'm not saying every situation has had a Disney ending, and there may not even be a Disney. There are no guarantees. I think that's another thing. Uncertain outcomes can cause us not to give our best, right? And unfortunately, there aren't any guarantees this side of heaven. other than God will never leave you, never forsake you. But I'm saying there are no circumstantial guarantees. With your health, your kids' health, their lives, your spouse, there are no guarantees. Question is, do I trust God? And I know this. I'm going to go out, God willing, doing what God wants me to do versus going to my own devices. Because one thing I know, though there are no guarantees, I don't want to be stuck with me. Like, I'm not going to choose. Let me go and decide. Let me figure it out myself. Because I know that's where that's got me. And I'm saying, this is an example of me. You know what's cool? Yes, it's that picture is worth 1,000 words. But what inspires me is not that moment. It was the fact that she continued to give her heart of God, though she was heartbroken, that made that possible. So I'm saying to us, DC Church, why do good people stop giving their best? And I'm asking you, do you have an ungrieved loss? Do you have an unresolved conflict? Do you have an unsuccessful effort? Do you have unmet expectations? Do you have uncertain outcomes? Write it down. I'm saying for your sake and for God's work and your life's sake. If any of those, you write it down and talk to somebody. Today, talk to someone, whether they're a counselor or a disciple, whomever. Talk to somebody. And ask yourself the question, what kind of person do you want to be? And what story do you want to tell? And finally, I want to challenge you to be a with all your heart Christian. And I want to ask you to pray for me. Because that's the person I want to be. 37 years in. I want to say, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength, I still, despite myriad disappointments, victories and defeats, joys and sorrows, God is still worth all my heart, all my soul, all my strength. As he was with Moses, as he was with David, as he was with Paul, and as he is with 2016 Christians. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for engaging in this discussion. And I wish you grace and peace. Thank you so much.